what is the ultimate purpose to be happy? And the only way to be happy is to make other people happy. Incredibly puts 24 hours of his time into something, right? He wakes up in the middle of the night in a sweat, trying to figure out how he's going to take care of the beneficiaries. You can't stop. That's what I was telling somebody the other day, is that I say yes very easily. I say no also equally easily.
Hello and welcome to a super duper special and fantastic episode of Pitch Cafe podcast. Today I am super excited because I am talking to a celebrity whom I have admired for many years. I've always seen her on the stage. I've always heard about her. I've read about her. Here she is on my platform, and this is to me more than surreal. But that's what life is. It throws a lot of good surprises at you. So I'm going to bite this surprise and I'm going to move on to the podcast. It has taken me a lot of courage to get here, and the person whom I'm going to interview is extremely down to earth, made it so easy for me. So today we have with us a very popular, internationally recognized non-profit growth accelerator CEO. But before that, she is a female entrepreneur role model to women in India, driven many national causes, including causes like Jupiter 360, Akshay Patra, and she has been key in organizing reception of Prime Minister Modi when he visited here. In addition to that, she's an Ayurvedic expert. She's also Carnatic music specialist, and the list goes on. To me, she is a spiritual role model. In summary, everything she stands for, it's about giving and being a part of this larger ethos of the universe. With huge honor, with great pleasure, I would like to invite Vandana Tilak, CEO of Jupiter 360 Foundation, to Pitch Cafe podcast. Welcome, Vandana. What a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. I've seen all your podcasts. They're so relevant to what the times are and to the people, and you're so true to who they are. I really appreciate you having me here.
Awesome. So on that note, what you're doing in Jupiter 360 is something which I have not heard of. You are running an accelerator for non-profits, and you have so many different kinds of non-profit organizations. To me, every venture should be a social venture, and people like you who care about society and about business, I really cannot find. So tell me, Vandana, why did you start Jupiter 360? What was your motivation?
So I think when I left a very large organization, then you figure out that at that point, I used to think, oh, this is my last job. This is where I was trained to come to. And then when I left it, for 7 days, I did nothing. Literally, I did nothing. And on the 8th day, I said, so what did I learn? If all that was 30 years as an entrepreneur, as a Ayurvedic practitioner, and all these different roles that I did, a filmmaker, then into nonprofit space. If that is all my learning journey, then what is the takeaway from that? And where do I use it and apply it the best? And of course, the answer was sector-wise nonprofit space. Then the other part was, my big takeaway was, I had excellent mentors and teachers who stood behind me. And so I said, okay, so that is another big component. How do I put all of these things together? And so Jupiter, of course, is the planet of learning, expansion, wisdom, and guru, as we call it.
Yes.
And 360 view is, of course, the how you see things in a circular manner. You need to come back to that starting point and to figure out that you do have a 360 vision, because if you skip any of those steps, then you really don't understand not just your point of view, but somebody else's point of view also.
Very nice. So Vandana, I was going through your interviews, and you say we start with serving and we end with serving. So this Jupiter 360 is so aligned with that. What did you mean when you said that, we start with serving, we end with serving? What was going on in your mind? What did you mean when you say that?
So I think service for others, in service of other people, is where you really find yourself the most fulfilled. And all of these words, when you say accelerator as for nonprofits, it's putting kind of a commercial term into the nonprofit to better understand what it is. But the holistic view, of course, is that what Deepak Chopra, my teacher, says is that after going through all the things that you do in your life, between the time you are born and your last breath, it's all just doing. You're doing something, right?
Yeah.
And what is the ultimate purpose? To be happy. And the only way to be happy is to make other people happy.
Yeah.
Simple. So whether you are an entrepreneur, you have employees and you're making their families happy, in that process, you are able to grow the company. That's great. But in service of others, that is so direct that nonprofit founders find themselves in spaces where they cannot really interpret their vision into reality. They don't know how to grow. They don't know how to sustain. Those are something points that I think, as a mother, as a woman entrepreneur, I relate to the most.
Awesome. That's such an amazing description. I was looking at your pictures of Jupiter 360 the other day, and I was like, wow, you're supporting something like 17,000 miles, and you talking about the OBLF nonprofit. So tell me some exciting moments you've had with Jupiter 360 where you really felt, wow, I have come a full circle. This is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah, when you start an organization and you're wearing all the hats possible and a few more, especially when you're working with nonprofits, you don't know where to start, where to end. Your days are long. You are constantly trying to refine your vision. In fact, I put the board together and, I tried very hard to explain what exactly we are going to be doing. So tactically, it was all fine. Strategically, there was a little bit of disconnect on what it was. Just let me do it. And then let's put the words around it, because that way it refines. So I think the wow points really were when the board, I know them as my teachers. I know them as my friends. Everybody said, we are standing behind you. That was the wow moment for me. Like, they have seen me set some incredibly crazy, audacious goals in the past. And they themselves have said, pie in the sky, I don't know how you're going to do this. And we really did manage to achieve them. And this was yet another place where your teacher stands behind you. They are ready to give their input when they need. They pull you back. Sometimes they push you forward many times. And I think it's the hidden language. It's the fine print between what they are saying and what they actually tell you. For example, I think it was funny when we had this event last weekend, and they all know, right? It was difficult to explain what Jupiter does. So after the event, Himanshu comes to me. He's on our board and he says, I was worried that you may not be able to tell people what we do. And I said, are you still worried? He said, no, I'm not worried. In fact, everybody was worried. We were all talking about it. He said, you came through with flying colors. So good for you. But those are my wow moments. I have those every day, small bits and pieces, and they keep you going.
So looks like you're a person who is believing in the larger force guiding you. Looks like you've given your full trust in the larger force to take over. How did you reach that level? If I look at your journey, I mean, you've been with Bombay Pictures, Ocean Center, you've been at Almex USA, which you currently are, then Magic Bus, OSAT, Akshay Patra, like a ton of these organizations. How did you get the confidence when you did Jupiter 360, that I'm going to surrender my will to the larger universe, the force that drives it? How did that happen? Because it seems like you're driving a business here. You're not really doing charity also. Like a very tough spot to be in. How did you do that?
I think it's very easy. The answer is in 2 words, it is letting go. And say yes to everything that comes. And in the beginning, it might seem like, oh, really? Is that a good fit? And after a while, you notice that if they are not a good fit, they automatically also leave. But they are there for a reason, for a certain period of time, to come and teach you something, to tell you something, to navigate you in certain ways. And every single time, all of these different things, Osho, whether it was investing in real estate, all of these times, including for Akshay Patra, when I signed on to start the chapter or to be a director or whatever positions, they were nothing that I asked for. They said one day that the chairman would say, okay, why don't you think about doing this? And I said, okay. He said, do you want to think about it? No, you asked me, I'll do it. All these things happen spontaneously. And I even now, almost every single day, there is a new organization that presents itself. They are all doing such amazing work. And you do all the due diligence. You do have to say no to some people, some, transparency, all those things need to check out. You need to build that trust in your own due diligence process actually. But once you go through that and you learn to say yes, even the people who you don't accept in your organization, in your organization's work, they are still there to teach you something. They are teaching you to refine the way you look at things. and to make sure that you don't make those same mistakes later.
Yeah, awesome. So Jupiter 360 is definitely one of a kind organization. You've been backed by awesome mentors. You have this say yes to everything, go with the flow mentality. But what you're really good at, what stuns me is non-profit is a place where money is scarce and you're in the weeds, literally. You're in the grassroots level. Everything looks so undone and you're dealing with a lot of poverty. But hey, you're running a business and what Vandana Tilak is really good at is scaling, and you've really driven crazy numbers like 6x growth in some of the non-profits. I was listening to your pitch. So how do you strike that balance? Like, do you use specific frameworks from business schools? Or what is Vandana's secret recipe to scale 10x or 6x? What is your personal recipe?
There's not a recipe as such because every organization's culture sensitivity is different. But if you want to put it into one single idea that, all nonprofits could function with or could use, that would be, I often say this to nonprofits, and it's not just marketing. You cannot just call it marketing because there's an ethos. There is a reason that the founder incredibly puts 24 hours of his time into something, right? He wakes up in the middle of the night in a sweat, trying to figure out how he's going to take care of the beneficiaries. You can't stop, right?
Yeah.
So the one thing that I always have said is that, there is somebody who starts something to help somebody. It's not to create a business. It's not to start a business. So let's put that aside. They are doing this just something that they think there is a paropkar. There's an altruistic reason why they are doing it.
Right.
He's actually grateful that somebody is giving him that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then this person is doing this. He's not looking at where the money is coming from. And then suddenly he realizes there's no money in the bank anymore. So this guy is looking at him and saying, yeah, this guy is doing something awesome. Let me help him. Somebody else is paying for the work this guy is doing. And in between that narrative that needs to come out, that whole story, the whole writing piece about what needs to come out so that not him, but a lot of other donors are attracted to that person, are supporting him, not with just money, with volunteering, with advice, with their professional guidance. Connect is what we do.
Fantastic. I really like that. It's pretty simple, and to me, you've captured the why and the story. So, I can't stop myself from asking, you've come from a movie background, the Bombay Pictures. You're passionate enough to start a venture, and then you have a degree in art. So what are one or two things you learned about movie making which you use in your storytelling, which you think it really stayed with you and it really made a difference?
I have loved photography since I was 10. It just captured my imagination to take. And at 13 years old, I whined, I nagged. I did all kinds of things to get my dad to bring me a Nikon camera, and he did. And since then, this love of photography and filmmaking has been always, with me. Like I said, when you look at all the things that you have done in the past that are bringing you to this current moment, when we had the online events in 2020, this same exact filmmaking ideas, the editing, the post-production of how you create videos, all of that came to use 100%. I still use that. The Jupiter video that we did, there's only two steps.
Mind-blowing. Just even the opening music, I just put it on full volume and put it on a headset and said, this is therapy to me. Like in a busy day, it just took me out of my skin, took me somewhere, totally transported me. I loved it. Like just the whole Jupiter thing, it is the guru with the weight.
So we did 200 videos during COVID, right? We literally cut 200 videos. And when we did this Jupiter thing, I said, so how do we make this? We make videos for all the nonprofits that we work with, every single one of them, because that is your showpiece, right?
Right.
I said, let's cut it down. Vandana sits in front of her laptop with a cup of tea at 7 or 8 in the morning, goes ding, 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 ding with a script. The next thing she sends it to my team, and they create a video, and in 3 days we have a video, whatever long that takes with the footages and all these things we have. 2 steps, that's it. So, when that narrative that I talked about with closing that gap between the founder and the donor is living images, is life itself as it presents on a movie screen. You are more moved by seeing actual people, by seeing who they are. A picture tells 1,000 words.
Absolutely.
A video tells 1,000,000 words. All
Absolutely.
the hidden nuances in filmmaking, post, and where you cut off something, and all of those things are what brought me to this job. Because otherwise, without that, it's just words, and or it's trying to get somebody to understand. This is actually making that presentation.
Yeah, fantastic. So I've heard this, data and software has driven the world enough now. Art and other forms of softer nature of skills will drive the world going forward. One of these scholars from Harvard who I follow, she's a blockchain thought leader, very young lady. So she is saying that, and I'm getting a validation from you. So these are all aspects of life which are not so monetizable, but they are so important in scaling something like a non-profit. So a lot of uncanny ideas, Vandana has a collection of uncanny ideas, basically. and two statements you make, which I really remember as I do a case study, one is you said nothing comes in the way, it's always on my way. You made that statement. What did you have in mind when you said that? And then you said, my life is not about whys anymore, it's about why nots. My life at Jupiter 360. So I'm like, I really have to do a podcast with her. So tell me, what were you thinking when you made these statements? I really want to gauge that moment, how it was.
The first one I had coined that long time ago when I was listening to one of my teachers. And first of all, it's to first understand that fear is literally not having done your homework. That's the only time you're afraid of something.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So, if you're afraid of something and you think something is in your way, then the only thing to do is work harder, find out the reason of why you're afraid, what is it that you're afraid of, and solve it. Right? It's a logical fear. If it's a real fear, it solves itself. It's an irrational fear, then it's irrational. Treat it as an irrational fear and move past it.
Yeah.
So basically, that's the one time that I really saw that, when I was trying out new ideas with Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is a much sought after thing. And a lot of people miss the point that it's actually lifestyle management rather than only a diet or only taking a bunch of very bad tasting herbs. So the whole idea behind Ayurveda is to manage your whole life the way you would manage a business, right? But it takes all the 7 levels of your system to actually work towards balancing what your mind body is. So then the other one, which you mentioned, whys and why nots, right? It is also the what ifs, all these things that we ask as startups. And after you're 60, you learn to differentiate between all the nonsense that you keep hearing, what is real, what is not real. And that's what I was telling somebody the other day, is that I say yes very easily, I say no also equally easily. So if I don't want to do it, I won't do it. But at the same time, I also try to understand, why did I say no to that? And it's something that thought process is always there. Sometimes I overthink too. So
Fantastic. So you mentioned 7 levels. I really want to ask you what they are, if you are in the mood to explain, because I love to study yoga and Ayurveda and lifestyle. It's one of my core passions. If you want to tell the audience what those 7 levels are, you're fit and fabulous. No one can tell your age. Obviously, it's working for you. But if you were to break it down to that common person who wants to be like you, what are the 7 levels and how to get there?
The 7 laws basically is to understanding the Sthula Sharir to the Sukshma Sharir. There are 7 levels of the body and mind, and to understand what they are, to be able to differentiate the needs of each of these, and how in the end, actually, the imbalances are actually points for learning for your own self, if you go into the depths of understanding it. But at the same time, it's not a cerebral understanding. It is more of an intuition. And I do a lot by intuition rather than the cerebral self. I often say yes to something before I understand why I said yes to something. It's just what you call a gut instinct or an intuition. And when you actually go through these 7 levels, you realize how the intuition has been guiding you the whole time, and how your intuition has actually helped you make the mistakes, learn from them. Just this morning, I was talking with one of my friends, and we have this saying in the startup world, fail fast, fail often. That's not right. We should say learn fast, learn often. Then that way you're actually putting a much more positive slant. And fail fast, meaning that you want to actually be able to think outside the box and moving on. Sometimes money runs out, which is fine. Money is money, it comes back. And learning often is also very important. Every day you need to learn something.
Yeah, fantastic. So this Sthula to Sukshma, very well put. Very, very well put. I think that summarizes your personality and this whole concept of running with the intuition. Not many people know how powerful that can be. It's just you're accessing a whole higher level of knowledge base, which is not apparent to common people in normal conscious levels. Something far greater is at play. So great, awesome. With all this, I know this your upbringing. I know it's your childhood, your inspirations when you were a child, like you talk about your dad, your uncle, your mom. This podcast will not be over without you referring to your childhood. What made you who you are? And, I really want to ask you, what was your childhood like and who were those primary figures in your life who shaped your thinking? This amazing mindset you have, so hard to come by, and the work you're doing in non-profit for driving a scale and growth. So who are the people who shaped your life and what was your childhood like?
Childhood was very, very fun. I grew up in Godrej. My father used to be in Godrej. He was the manager of the plant precision equipment division. And so I basically grew up in Godrej colony, which is like a haven. It's like totally green. You were like in the middle of a rural area. You worked very hard. My mother also, she was an entertainer. She had like 5,000 shows. We used to perform on stage since I was age 6.
Oh, wow. So can I ask, what did you perform?
Bollywood songs. I used to sing Bollywood songs on stage. My mother had an orchestra. She performed on stage. And I think going from what my cousins and all teach me about, they always say Vandana was always a very quiet person, very spiritual person. Like, quiet meaning not lonely, but just loved her being aloneness. So I would say probably an introvert in today's language. And maybe it was the programs that I used to participate in where the whole noise and the whole cluttered feeling actually pushed me into being more of a reader, more of a thinker.
Yeah, events can drain a lot of energy. You're dealing with a lot of sporadic energy. I totally understand. The day I do an event, the day before, day after, is totally signed out because so much goes into it. And if your childhood has been like that, I'm sure you found some way to unwind. So definitely.
Yeah. So other influences was, of course, all my cousins. We used to hang out all the time during summer, in the village or when my uncles had his thing, or in Pune most of the time when my summer vacation. My mother, who was out on tours all the time. My grandmother was a huge part of my life. She basically was there for us when my mother wasn't. And they had this very, very close relationship where she said, you go do your programs, I will manage the whole house. And that's very, very uncommon for a woman to support a woman in her house. This is totally the opposite of what you hear from mother-in-laws or for any person for that matter, when you don't feel supported in the house. And my mother literally would have complete peace of mind that my sister was being taken care of at home. And I was considered a very quiet person. If somebody didn't know me, they would say she's aloof, she's a little stuck up, and I didn't care. I was who I was. But growing up, I loved the arts. My father wanted me to go into architecture, and I said, Baba, I just want to draw. I did not say I wanted to be an artist. I didn't say I wanted to be somebody, a graphic designer. I just kept saying, I want to draw. That's it. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be anybody. And so he made me go through 12th grade so I could go to architecture college, which was a prerequisite. I did the 12th, and then just before I was going to give my application form, I said, can I please just draw? And he said, fine. So that's how I went to JJ School of Arts. I studied graphic design. I learned photography. I met my friends who are still friends for the longest time.
Amazing. So you had an amazing childhood. So on that note, I do want to ask, what is your strongest message you've learned from all your expeditions, in movie, in Ayurveda, and your non-profit? You also have your own company where you manufacture metallic parts for aircrafts. So you're doing a lot lot of things and driving a lot of initiatives. So what's your strongest message to the audience? If you were to say something, from your own life, I know you're not a person who will advise. You're a person who will simply do things and show people. But what's the strongest message you have from all these things you're doing?
I think, the biggest message I say is, as a woman, you have a lot of pressure into being something else. And
Absolutely.
The one thing I learned when I took notes when I was with Deepak, and I said, what are the two questions I want to ask myself at this retreat? And one was, am I trying to perfect something, or am I trying to differentiate something? So am I trying to perfect myself? Am I trying to get better at something? Or am I trying to just be a different somebody that I'm completely... And both were rare. I am different from everybody else. I am perfect. And every single person on this planet is unique.
Yeah,
so,
you can't compare them. You can't compare.
Yeah. And there is this huge creator that has created the world and made the perfect version of who you are. So the only message I said is just be yourself. You have everything that you need. It's all within your arm's length. And this is the message I gave to a 5-year-old who was, struggling with his piano recitals. He used to not be able to sleep. He used to get literally into physical pain the day before.
Oh my God.
To have cramps. He used to throw up because of this fear of playing the next day. And I said, listen, kid, you are very talented. And just know that whatever age it is you are at, you get the problems that you can solve. So this is a problem. If it's a big problem to you, you're awesome. Because it's presenting to you as a big problem. For somebody else, it might not. To you, it is. And if it's a big problem, you are awesome to get such a big problem. So know that you are great and you are going to be studying. You love piano, obviously. You are so much anxious about playing the next day. You are going to play it perfectly. And since then, the kid slept for every single night. His mother called me and she said, that one sentence changed everything for him.
Wow. I can only imagine. You literally healed him. You're a healing force. I think that's what you are. And for me, the most striking thing about you is you're a doer. And the fact that you said, I love to draw. Paulo Coelho is one of the most famous authors. He wrote Alchemist. And he says when you put pen to paper, something happens. It's just a way universe starts speaking to you. So you're totally amazing. You're fantastic. Universe is definitely speaking to you because you're a doer. So I want to ask you to sing before we wrap up. I don't want to wrap up. I want to keep talking to you. But I know you can sing. And if you feel there is a note which is haunting you at this moment, I'd love to listen to it.
Really? You want me to sing in a podcast?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'm going to try this. This is a lullaby I sing to my granddaughters.
Okay.
It's a very old song. I think it's Vasantrao Desai. Some people may not even remember this song or may not have heard about this. It's but I just love this song. It's what connects me to my grandkids at night in the dark when I sing this for them. Tum mere, main teri, तेरे चरण कमल की फेरी जन्म जन्म से तेरी पुजारन लाए भर के तेरा प्यार सलोनी सैया इसको करो स्वीकार तुम मेरे तेरी एक प्राण दो तन है हमारे जुग जुग के हम साथी संग संग है दोनों पिया हम जैसे दिया और बाती आशा मिली नई कलियां खिली देखो जीवन में आई बहार सलोनी सैया इसको करो स्वीकार तुम मेरे मैं तेरी.
Wow. Such an amazing song, such beautiful lyrics. It's the most memorable moment for me on any podcast ever. Nobody has ever sung on my podcast. You're the first one. And what a fantastic podcast. Vandana ji, thank you so much for gracing this show. I'm sure it's going to touch a gazillion hearts. And we wish you all the very best with Jupiter 360. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much and much success to you. I have never said these things on any interview or TV show before. And I applaud you for bringing out the best in people. That's a very, very superlative quality to have. Thank you.
Thanks, Vandana ji. Thank you so much.